Good morning and good evening. How's everyone doing?
Great. Kino, nice to see you again. It's been a while.
It's been a minute, as they say.
Yeah, nice to see you. Oh,
Hi, Zara. How you doing?
hello there, Kino and they're gone. It is very nice to see you again after the last episode.
Yeah, when was the panel? I forgot to check that it was last year, correct?
Look,
It
it
was
Late
this
last year.
year.
was our
Yeah.
fourth episode, and Zara and her colleagues joined us on a very, very interesting panel discussion.
Actually, till date, it's the most famous trending episode that we have out there.
Not surprised. It's
Yeah,
probably the most interesting, trending group of people we had on the show.
yeah. I mean, even when people ask me, like, how did we manage to get this done? I'm like, Don knew someone, that someone knew someone, that someone knew someone. And we managed to get past the Taliban government, to talk to everybody on that side of the world and get a understanding of what's happening. So, I mean, that was phenomenal. So what we're doing this time around for the listeners is we are bringing back all the individual attendees from the panel. So search for Kaj Education under Creating Team Human, and you can listen to the entire panel, and you can learn more about Kaj. Kaj will be brought up, briefly on this show. But now we have welcomed back Zahra. Am I pronouncing your surname correct, Amiri?
Yes, Zahra Amiri.
Zahra Amiri, who is it past tense? Was a student at college or I currently still a student?
I was a student at college, but now I'm kind of helping them, being as being a mentor, sometimes mentorship programs.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, so still involved with college education. So we welcome back Zara to start off the one-on-one interview so we can get to know each person individually, past, present, and also speak about what their hopes are for the future and what they are going to do to, fulfill this mandate that we got going on at Creating Team Human. So Dawn, can take it away.
Kino, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so again, I want to welcome Zara and just really feel happy to have her back. Um, the the concept of creating Team Human is based on the idea that as a global society, we're facing all kinds of existential challenges, and at a time when we need to come together and cooperate and collaborate and combine our energies and expertise, it seems like instead we're splitting up into smaller and smaller tribal groupings. So we want to instead work toward creating Team Human, and we start all the time with that poem by Langston Hughes, in which he says, "I'm so tired of waiting, aren't you, for the world to become good and beautiful and kind. Let us take a knife and cut the world in two and see what worms are eating at the rind." And that's what for this episode, we're just really delighted to have Zahra Amiri back. And Zahra, just give you a little bit of her background because it's fascinating, and of course, it's a fascinating part of what's going on in the world today. And when I went on she, just quickly, she's an initial student of Kaj educational program, which focuses on enhancing the opportunities for women and girls' education in Afghanistan. Started as a student and is now working as a supporter. But when I went on their website, I saw this. It's now been 1,600 days since Afghanistan's Taliban government banned all education for girls and women. Now you think about that, that's over 5 years that women have been denied the opportunity to develop their own intellects and capabilities. And it's stunning to me, just basically on the basis of gender. So what as you can see, that the Afghani, the is to thrive in international colleges and universities and paved the way for Afghan girls to become powerful agents of change in their communities and the world. I think that's something that's right at the heart of what we're trying to do as Team Human. And the whole idea of not at your community as well, your Afghani community as well as contributing to the world. And so one of the things that I think is worth pointing out is that the name of the organization, KAJ, is in reference to a 2022 massacre that occurred in Kabul. And it was a suicide bomber that attacked an educational facility there and killed 53 people, if you can believe it, who were simply sitting, studying for a test. I'm going to ask this to start off. After that, that atrocity, the people, the women and men too, who were involved in creating Hajj, took that name in defiance and in recognition of the people who had died for the sake of education. And so I'm going to leave that now and hand it over to Zahra. And Zahra, perhaps you can start by clarifying the Hajj massacre for us, if you would.
Yes, well, first of all, KAJ was one of the best. It was like an academy that had the best teachers, but also it was so much cheap for all the students of the all Afghanistan. Students from all over the Afghanistan were coming for the winter break in Kabul to study there because sometimes they had scholarships for people who needed. So that was why people not from only that area, but also from all over the country were coming to there and study there. And before KAJ, there was another academy called Ma'ud. The same thing happened to them in not during the Taliban, but before the Taliban. So this was not something that we were thinking it is because of Taliban. It was, I mean, the reason was Taliban. The people who did that was, they were Taliban. But it was in the previous government too, that the same thing was happening to academies, schools. And it was a normal Friday. The girls who they were sure that they cannot go to school anymore, they went to that academy, also boys. They wanted to have a pre-test, like a mock test, like you're taking a test for your A-levels, the same exact thing. They were in a very big room, girls and boys. Girls sitting next to the door, the entry door, and boys sitting next to the exit door. They were having their test. They were focusing, and that was the moment at I guess 10 a.m. in the morning when these Taliban terrorists, they entered to the academy by having explosion in the entry of the course, and the guards were died, and they started firing and bombing, and the boys most of them had the opportunity to escape, also some of the girls, but most of them were being killed, bombed, and some of them ended up losing a part of their body. As a very dear friend of mine has lost her eye, and many other problems they faced after that, the traumas. So that was how KAJ never could be a KAJ anymore for girls. After that, I studied there still. I was a student of there, but not exactly at that time because I was not taking those classes. Many of our teachers left, and now that college is not that much powerful because the teachers left. They could not see any more themselves in these classes, and that is what happened to college.
Zahra, I mean, the obvious question is why? Why would people kill?
I'm sorry, Dan, I lost.
I know I'm froze for a minute.
Yes.
Why? Why would people be willing to die just to kill people who wanted to get an education? What was their objective? What possible? It's so horrible to hear, and you can just imagine the terror that must have swept through the room and the horror of the aftermath. What possible motivation do people have?
Well, power, education is power, and what they want is power. In the whole Afghanistan, they were fighting for power for years. And they know that if the new generation, like Iran's new generation that are fighting against their government, the Mahsa Amini rebellion that they were fighting for, were all teenagers. And the same, it was happening in Afghanistan. The girls were being against the laws that their grandfathers had put them for. And they were fighting for the rights they had. Not only the girls, the boys and the girls in the new generation, they knew they had the right. And they wanted to govern their country themselves, not any other countries outside or the terrorists who did not have any idea of education or how to rule a country or democracy. So, of course, they knew that education is the power.
Interesting analysis. Education is power, and in hands like people like you and other people, it threatened them deeply, so deeply that they were willing to kill 53. I understand 53 boys and girls were killed in that terrible raid, and as you say, many other people injured. What a horror! So maybe you can take us from that terrible tragedy to what, either how you want to go before or after, to what became the Kaj educational program and what you've been doing in Afghanistan.
Well, I would like to start with the very old ages when I was born, 2006. That is why 2026 is a little bit bold, a bold year for me, because I'm turning into my 20s and stressful. But I had at the very beginning, unlike many other girls and many other families, I had the privilege to be born in a family where my mother was educated because of living in Iran before, and she was a rebellious, educated woman, not only educated but rebellious and yes, and well, she chose battle or a sad, uncomfortable life. She ended up being a single mother, which I appreciate her so much. And that's how my background shaped. As I was living in Kabul, there should be motivation over everything we do, over these episodes, this podcast, to change something, to inform people what is going on around the world, around the globe. Also, there should be a motivation why I want to do something for my life. And as I was a little girl, my mother used to buy books for me, and I was reading. And I guess I was very young that my mother bought a book from Elif Shafak, a Turkish writer, about three daughters. The name is Three Daughters of Eve. And it was kind of the thing that was happening was in Oxford, and that was how I got to know Oxford University. And after that, at a very young age, I started studying English. People were not quite agree with that because they were thinking that I should focus on math, on physics, chemistry, but I was working toward the dream of Oxford. And I was calling it a project, Oxford Goal. And that was why in those times that, right, some years before Taliban, these Taliban also sometimes Al-Qaeda and some other groups, they were kind of attacking the academies, some schools also. One of the schools, the children were so young that they were about like 12 years old, 11 years old, and that was one of the saddest moments. But at that time, I was studying in academies, and I do have the experience that we were so being stressed, and we were planning every time we were sitting, we were planning how to escape if the terrorist attack to our school or academy. So as not only me, but a lot of other Afghan students, boys and girls, they were studying and working hard because they had a plan, and there were still the very insecure we were insecure. If it was secure, the place we were studying, we were insecure deep in heart, and we knew it won't be safe enough for us. And so I continued, and I'm kind of alive. And my mother always says, we are so lucky we're still alive, because we had a lot of troubles, especially our home was kind of close to the street, and many times there was explosion in the car, in the buses. I have the videos right now. I was talking and giving the report, and still I have the video. Well, as that was the situation, it was quite intense that Taliban came. I still remember it was kind of August 15 in the morning. The weather was so hot, and I went to the school. I had kind of this test. The whole school, the whole country, we had test. And as I was taking the test, we were done, and our teachers and the school manager told us to go home as soon as we can, and we should not stop by the street or anywhere else. We should go home and do not go out. If our parents are not there, we should not be scared, and we should not go out. I had no idea what is going on, because I was not following the news or anything. And my mother was kind of very strict on following the news. She was thinking that it is distracting for me and kind of stressful. So when I went home, I didn't know that was the last time I actually can go to this school. If I knew, I had it.
How old were you, Zahra? How old were you then?
I guess maybe 14 or 15. Yes. And the morning of August 15 was different than morning of August 16, 2021, because by the end of August 15, the government had changed. Taliban was all over the streets, and no women. You could see no woman on the streets. And the fact that my family was kind of into politics in Afghanistan, and we were very scared. My aunt, she was working in politics, and she was not home, and she wore something that Taliban wouldn't like so much, and we were all just praying at that moment. But we kind of went through those moments, and no banks were working at that moment, and there were a lot of other problems. But some days after that, I went to the school. As far as it's about education, I would say I went to the school, but there were no friends of mine, and a lot of friends were missing, a lot of classmates, teachers. They had escaped to other countries, mostly France, USA, Brazil, and this Pakistan, Iran, and funny, some of them escaped to the mountains, to the small villages, because they were mostly working in their families were working in government in high positions, and they knew that they will be killed by Taliban. So that class never happened. We were only two or three students, and the manager of the school said, "I'm sorry, but maybe one day." But that day never came, and
They never came. Yeah.
yes, that day, and I had to sit at home. I could not go out because I had no right to study, to work. I love to work in a cafe or a restaurant. That is very my best plan to do when I'm young, because I can get to know a lot of people, different situations. I love writing, so I can have a lot of characters. But I was not even able to do that. I kind of went to different cafes and asked for a job, but they say, you're a girl, and now this is the situation. Can't you see the situation? Well, I ended up being in depression. I was not even in contact with my friends because apparently they lost their phone or something. But only some of them, two or three of them that I knew, they were in Iran or Pakistan. I was in depression for I guess 2 years or 1.5 year. And the only thing I could do was writing, which still I do have my short stories with me. And I started somehow. My mother was still very keen on me, what I am doing and the situation. So she kind of moved our home into that location that I say Dashte Barchi is the place where you find academies, college and everything. And so I started going to college. Before that, I was not going to college. I started going to college, and that time, I guess before that I was going to college, but for a very short time. But after that, when I was going to college, I guess that, yes. So that was how my life kind of changed. I got out of the depression mode, and I started studying English also, as I was doing before. And the first online.
Sorry, I just want to, because there's so much there to unpack with depression. But one of the things that strikes me is how just like literally overnight things just flipped. All of a sudden, there were only Taliban on the street. Women weren't on the street. Your school was closed forever. All of your dreams, all of your connections had just disappeared. The modeling you had for women's education, all of that, your hope. No wonder you fell into a depression. And so Kaj, the fact that you were able to reconnect with education, with learning, with other women who were also committed to education is what helped get you out of your depression. Is that right?
Yes, that is true. That is exactly true. It was not that I was not trying to do anything in my depression era. I was trying to study. I had my books open, and I had some videos of teachers, kind of secretly recording the videos and giving us to study online, not online, offline, but by ourselves with the videos. But it was not possible. The mathematics and everything, and there was no motivation at all. Every day I had this schedule trying to study, but it was not possible. But as I said, I started learning English in this online classes, which some months after that, I was a little bit better, kind of in mentally better. I got to know college, and college really changed my life. It helped me in a way that I can't say, because I didn't know how to use like Google Forms. I mean Google Sheet, Google Meet, or many things. It helped me to get connected to the world. Well, the first person I knew was Robin Higgins, Miss Robin. I love her so much because of the worst situation that I was, and she was the only one who was helping me, having private sessions sometimes. And we were having in other course of college, in other classes of college, we were having these digital literacy classes, English classes, TOEFL preparation classes, academic writing classes, and many other classes that were helping me to become the ideal student, that so I can go on with the world, because Afghanistan's educational system was quite different. And so I kept myself connected to the college because I knew how good it is and how beneficial it is. But I was not a student of college for a very long time, maybe for some months, and then I was graduated. And so I had to find some other schools, and I found this online American school, which changed my life because I got the diploma from there, because, as I said, I was in the 9th grade when Taliban came. And after some times, I went to Pakistan because in Afghanistan, the situation was not good, and some private reasons that I had. I went to Pakistan and lived there for 1 year and graduated from high school and applied for Jakarta International University and got accepted in Jakarta and in this university. And but there was something wrong. This online school, although I had the diploma, but since it was online, not all the universities accepted. And I got to this university very hard because the government does not accept it. And so I was not satisfied with my school either. That was how I applied for studying A-levels. It was very hard, but I was shocked how I could got into that school. But I'm studying my A-levels too right now. I got accepted into that school, and right now I'm doing my bachelor's in visual communication design and my A-levels in psychology, fine art, and history.
Well, that's quite a story.
It is. Yes.
But filled not only with trauma and really tragedy, but also filled with such determination and resourcefulness, and support. One thing I hear from you is about the support that you had from your mother and from other, who didn't just comply with the Taliban, but helped you realize your dreams, your objectives, and supported you. And I think without that, and yet I'm sure you're still carrying around a lot of that sadness, but
Yes.
but by doing something positive, the other thing I keep hearing from you is that, you first became aware of the world because your mother brought you books about other places. So many people are isolated in their little world. That's the tribal issue that we're trying to deal with. And so they just identify with their tribe. Everybody else is you're afraid of them. But you understood that there was a wider world out there that you were part of, and you wanted to be part of it, and you were determined to do it. I think that's incredible. What you had to overcome is almost hard to believe.
Yeah, definitely. My mother's support is, I cannot ignore it even for 1 second, because even the coach link, that was my mother whom she sent the link so I could apply, or the school, she was the one who found it, or any other thing. Also, my mother had a chance to go out of Afghanistan. But since there were some family issues and passport issues, she did not leave us. She did not leave my mother.
She's still in Afghanistan.
Yes,
Are you worried for her?
I am, but I'm sure that she's being very careful for herself, and she's still working.
Can I just expose the Taliban government for 10 seconds? Yeah, publicly. So your mother's still in Afghanistan. She has to be really careful. Like, what's the punishment? What do they do to a woman if they caught working, if they caught walking with, clothes they don't like? What's the punishment? What do they do to women?
The problem is that we don't know. There are a lot of girls missing. The time that I was in Afghanistan, I was still studying English because of getting TOEFL, but still I was very afraid. And right now I hear some of the people say that, especially in that area, as I say, girls are missing. Just Taliban came, they took them in the van, and their families could not find them forever. Or some of them were being found, and they had to pay the fine for maybe $2,000 or $3,000, which is 1 year's family's kind of income. Yeah.
Well, what do you think is happening to them?
Well, a lot of punishments, most probably, and I have no idea of that because no one came back.
But the fear, I mean, not knowing. I mean, I think we see some of that, and unfortunately, in some countries very close to us, where people are so afraid of what they don't know what the consequences will be, but they're afraid, so they speak up. They don't take action. But in your case, the fear is based on being killed outright, of disappearing and never returning. Of who knows what. I think that's I mean, can you imagine? It would paralyze most people. It didn't you, and it didn't your mother, but that's the idea, isn't it? To intimidate you into silence, intimidate you into just accepting your position and being quiet.
To be compliant. Or else.
So take us up from that's what's the status in Afghanistan now? From what you're saying, really things haven't improved at all, and that the Hajj continues to operate underground secretly.
Yes.
So
Nothing has improved, and it got worse and worse. It's getting worse and worse day by day. Sometimes the girls, as we're studying A levels together, they are losing their internet, which is the most essential thing that we need right now as Afghan girls because we can't go out to study, and they don't have access to internet, no Wi-Fi, no phone data, nothing. And sometimes they're gone for 2 or 3 days, and we're just freaking out in here. And it did not get any better, but I'm sure that more girls are studying online right now, and that is what we're grateful for right now because they found their way. There are a lot of other schools, as I say, the one that I'm studying with right now is for Afghan girls, and so some of the girls, not a very high percentage, but some of the girls could find a chance to get out of Afghanistan, and they are helping others, supporting others, whether financially, academically, any type they can. And we are hoping to continue this way and do something.
and to do something in both globally and also to hopefully affect some changes inside of Afghanistan. Do you have any hope for change in Afghanistan? And if you do, what form would it take?
Hopes. That is definitely what we have. Well, I'd say we are hoping so the government will collapse, the current government. Sometimes the situation is not very good, and we are wondering how that kind of government is still in Afghanistan. How can they manage everything? But the hope that I have is that these online schools, academies, and online universities. They will just carry on, and they will help Afghan girls to study, to be educated, and to find their way. And as far as I know, some other students, they're having their very good income of the internet. They're working, teaching, and with different companies all over the world. They're studying designing or web designing and coding and some other skills, so they can earn money by that. And that is what we are hopeful for now, at least. And the plan that I have is to help others the way the other people help me. As I said, I'm a mentor. I have some of the girls in Afghanistan with me. We're working on university projects. We're working on personal statements on how to apply for the universities and finding the good universities. And they're still, of course, studying their school, but we are preparing all the documents so they can apply and they find their way. And I am pretty sure that not a very long time later in the future, we are going to have enough power to do something for our country, of course.
So you also need international support. International support is so critical,
It is.
and the international community doesn't care.
They're not even aware. Just the sort of things that Zahra is talking about. I mean, do you hear that when you go down to your local cafe? If you said something like, are you aware of the situation? And yeah, I think it's not very good. I think but the kind of reality that Zahra can share is quite, brings it dramatically home. And we were all very much aware of what's going on in Iran right now. It seems to have some of the same dimensions as Afghanistan. Is there a similarity between the two?
Yes, I see a lot of similarities. Also, there are something that is not similar to Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, we did not have that much of compassionate young people who want to fight for their countries, to fight for their freedom of religion, for the freedom of speech, freedom of thinking, even. So what is happening right now is that they are their own people who want freedom. But in Afghanistan, it was other countries who wanted freedom, but not very much of their own people of Afghanistan. And the majority mostly wins, not always, but mostly, yeah. So we're hopeful.
Can you explain that? I had a friend who spent time in Romania, and he talked about what you were saying, that there's this whole group of young people. He said the mullahs are trying to keep the lid on, but there's hundreds of thousands of young people who through internet and other ways are communicating, and they're not going to just take it. They're going to fight back. And that seems to be what's happening. What you're saying in Afghanistan, that group wasn't there. And what I thought, Chris, you said that outside countries wanted to change, but not people. Maybe that's well worth looking at. That if people inside a country don't want change and don't support change, forcing it on them simply makes the situation worse. It doesn't make it better. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. And you know what? Right now, that was the situation in the past. Right now, I see a lot of other compassionate young people who want to fight for Afghanistan, including my own brother or me, or my very young brother I see how rebellious he is and how aware he is of the situation at the age of only 10 years old.
Wow. That's really interesting. You build that critical mass of young, aware people. But of course, the Taliban's doing everything they can to keep that from happening, right?
And they can't, yes.
they force like people like you outside of the country because they don't want you in the country either, do they?
This concept of Iran and Afghanistan, how they do these controlling so intense and hard on people, is very interesting. It, they can't keep it, not in a very long time, for a long time. And in Iran, there are some people who are against the government, and in the very long time ago, I can say, which one of them is a very dear friend of mine. She is about 50 years old, and she used to fight against Iran's government for years. Also, her children right now, but they are out of Iran. This is what is going to happen for Afghanistan. We are going to be in those generations, but we're not sure if this generation is going to win or the next generation. But we are pretty sure that we are going to be like Iran, but maybe in the future, because Iran, we call them the 80 decade in our calendar. They are very brave. They are called as brave generation, which they are very young at the age of 15, 16, 18, 19, and so on until 30, 40, 50. And they are going to the streets and fighting. One of the examples is Nikah Shahparani, who was singing and she knew that she's gonna die, and she was singing, and we have the pictures of her, and I admire her every time I see her picture. And a lot of Nikahs.
I mean, it really kind of chokes me up. That level of dedication of willing to literally give your life, because not for you, but for the people that are going to follow you. Amazing.
Yes.
What do you think,
I'm overwhelmed, man. I'm overwhelmed. It's like each time we have these conversations, we just end up with this big question mark on, that there's so much we can do. Dawn, you and I had this conversation last week. There's so much we can do. And all we can do each and every single day is our best. We can't do anything over and above that. So you wake up today, you do your best, that is going to be beneficial for humanity in the future to come. We won't see major changes in this world throughout our lifetime. It's very ambitious if we do. We're going to see a lot of revolutions going on around the world. We're going to see civil war happening in each and every single country around the world. Like Zahra was telling you before Dawn came on, over the next 5 years, we're going to see major chaotic issues happening, It's going to be bad. If we think it's bad now, it's going to be worse. And all we can do is prepare, but if we can unify people through this podcast, through other podcasts, to start educating people, and telling them, look, this is how the world really works. One thing that amazes me is I don't know what makes army officials do what they do, take orders without question, especially in Western countries. I don't get it. And then makes me think about all these chips that Elon Musk is designing at the moment, and is this getting utilized within the army?
The military is a strange beast, and all over the world. I often wonder at that too. Buffy St. Marie has a song called "The Universal Soldier," and it says, he really is to blame. His orders come from far away no more. They come from him and you and me. There's always there's this mentality, and when you create the other, the enemy, people will, it seems like, innately react, and it's a phenomenon that I don't understand, because those are the people. Without them, those repressions can't go on. what you're talking about, Zahra, whether it's in Iran, there are men, and I'm sure they're all men, that are carrying out these orders, these horrible orders, that are shooting people with live ammunition in peaceful demonstrations, that are torturing women because they're singing without a headscarf on. I mean, um, what are they thinking? They're the ones that ultimately carry out the orders from above. And
I don't think they're thinking.
I don't.
I don't think they don't. This is like mind control, and call it conspiracy. Say I'm crazy, but we see this happening all the time. Whether we read about it, whether we watching a movie, and this is in there. I mean, we look now. I'm going to focus on the West, right? The CIA itself is so powerful and dangerous. There's so many different programs that are going on, and mind control is not a far reach for me, because the moment you enter the army or you enter the CIA, you go through a program and you don't know what's happening in this program. I think there's a movie, it's called The Fifth Wave, sorry. And something similar like this also happened. The moment you came into the army, they planted a chip in you, and what they want you to see, you saw and you obeyed. So they would make an average normal civilian the enemy in your eyes. So this doesn't add up for me.
It's not just the army, Kino. I mean, you look at what Zahra is saying. If you have no access to other information, like if you're simply propagandized in religious schools, for example, to accept what is passed down by religious, I mean, then you've already, you don't even have to go into the CIA training. It's happening all around you. Your home, your mosque, your community. And you learn to take orders, and you learn to carry them out, and you learn that those are the enemy, and they deserve to die. And I might speak to that, Zahra. We're just talking. You've lived.
No, but just one more comment. I mean, that's the difference now between the West and the East. The West is more, okay, how do we control them with technology? The East now is more like, what have we been taught via the government or religion? Right? What have they told us? And this is what we stick by no matter what. Sarah, before you continue, what? Oh, sorry, Don.
With the United States lately? Man, I'm serious. You talk about mind control. I mean, these are people who, would believe the earth is flat if their leaders told them that. I mean, I'm not sure that the phenomenon, I think it cuts across cultures, cuts across it's, I mean, the control, and what we're seeing, I think, more in Iran and Afghanistan is that the ruthlessness of the enforcement. Although we just saw 2 people murdered in Minneapolis, I mean, it's starting to spread globally. If you can't keep them down through mind control, well, you can do it with guns. And I'm afraid that's kind of the way the world is moving. But Zahra, here we are babbling on. I'd be really interested in your thoughts on that. What do you think about that whole idea of why do people enforce these terrible rules?
Well, I believe more than me, there is a book written by George Orwell. The name of the book is 1984. I think this book shows very well, especially the situation of Iran right now, and Afghanistan, of course, how they are how they have been brainwashed, how they think. The same way as we have this belief that everyone should be free, they can choose what they want, and they can study so they can improve, so they can be a better person for the community. The same way they have their thoughts that they have their God, Allah, and not pointing to any kind of religion, but the belief that they have. They are having this very unique belief that they have to save the world, and the way that they can save the world is different than us, basically.
Interesting.
They think that if they see one hair of a girl, it is a very big sin, which they will end up being in the hell. So this is what they think, and they think that they're responsible for the world that they are living right now, for having a better life in the future, in the heaven, and the better life that they can have is very weird. There are a lot of things people, I mean, they have in their mind. One of them is that they are working right now toward that goal, which is in that life and that goal, so they can enjoy what we have right now in this world. I mean, that is not what we can think of, like the freedom, like the education, and why not now? Why not now that having that family you can have? Why not now?
There was an old labor hymn, and it goes like, it ends up with, "You'll get pie in the sky when you die," and it was, the idea that you have to suffer now, but when you die, if you just do the right thing and don't cause any trouble, I think it's and that's what I say. I think it cuts across cultures, religions. I mean, this in 1984 is a perfect example of that. But you believe that these people, like in Iran, these guys that are, because women refuse to wear headscarves and are beating them, that they really believe they're doing the right thing?
Yes, they do. Well, I am in contact with them, with 3 or 4 of them, and yes, they do. They have their own beliefs, of course. They have their own strategy, their own imagination of their future if they succeed. And yes, they do believe in that so much.
Is there people that support the Taliban government? Okay, of course there is people that support the Taliban government, but like a ball figure, what's the percentage?
Oh, I wish I had enough information.
What do you think? Like, just like,
Yes. Like if there was
what
an
rule of the real population?
Well, there were a lot of people. I once had a chance to go to the village that I was born in before, and I obviously saw a lot of Taliban in the city, in the big cities. Mostly we see them, but we can't recognize. There are a lot of them, and we just go like our head are down. We try not to have connections with them too much. But in the village, as they are renting people's homes or they are living in them in their houses by force, both of them can happen. They were mostly speaking Urdu, which is the language of Pakistan, and so half of the Taliban at that time were Pakistani, and that was very interesting, also scary, that they could speak only 2 languages, some of them 3: English, Urdu, and Pashto, and so not Persian, which is the language of Afghanistan. Pashto and Persian are the languages, formal languages of Afghanistan. But we were all kind of shocked of that because we don't speak Urdu in any of the provinces of Afghanistan, but only in India and Pakistan.
Interesting. So there's ethnic elements to this as well.
Yeah.
That certain ethnic groups support the Taliban, certain ethnic groups oppose them. So you can't even really talk about how many people in Afghanistan because it's such a diverse population.
Yes, but Taliban are only one ethnicity, which is Pashtuns, and the weird part is that the Taliban that came from Pakistan, they were also Pashtuns of Pakistan, not Punjabi or not Sikhs, but they were like the Pashtuns. So yeah,
Here we are again with tribal.
I'm trying my best not to mention this.
Yeah, I think we were all thinking that, right? We were all thinking that. It's so
We all,
divided.
if that's the theme of our show, is creating Team Human as opposed to creating Team Pashtan, right? It's like that to break down so people start to look at each other as fellow human beings rather than the other, right? And I mean, don't you think education, I mean, not always for sure, but it can help that because you come to see the world in a less restrictive way. It's a broader world. You begin to see people share the same desires for, peace and so forth.
Yes, definitely. Yes, exactly. Well, the Afghanistan is a very obvious example of a hierarchical society, but also I see this maybe because I practice so much, I see this hierarchical system in even in my university that I'm living in or in the country that I'm living in, and sometimes I'm being bothered as I see people, being in their agency and also like kind of autonomy and how they work for other, and there is one authority figure and we just obey, and this is a little bit hard for me because I was the person who was always dissent and was disobeying. It is a very big challenge for me.
So you sound like your mother's daughter.
Thank you.
Compliment. Gosh, what a remarkable life. And I'm looking so forward to seeing, where you go from here, because obviously I mean,
You have some plans.
it's just, I have so much respect for your resilience and your intellect and your insights. And I know you're going to make a real contribution to making Team Human a better team. You already are.
Thank you so much. That is very kind of you.
It's not kind. I think it's just an objective observation. You don't run into that many people with your, and you're still a very young woman, young person. Your combination of experience and reflection and vision and hope and history and sensitivity. There aren't a lot of people out there with that combination, and I admire you for it. And I think the more we can create those kind of folks, the more likely we are to create a society where people come together for common good rather than to enforce our view of the world on them. And sooner we can abandon that idea and say, hey, we're really all into this together. All of us are. Maybe we should find ways of cooperating instead of fighting each other.
Just like what we do in here.
It doesn't.
I admire the good people in the world that are publicly protesting, okay? We see it happening in Iran, it's happening in the US, okay? I admire you for standing your ground and being open about, your opinions and what you believe in. But I feel this method is slightly outdated. It's not as effective as it used to be if we look at past revolutions. Yeah, violence back in the day, it was effective, but it's not that effective anymore. If you attack someone with violence, they are going to attack you back with violence because they got nothing to lose. We need to start being more strategic, and a method like what Kaj has done, Zahra has done, is the way I feel each person needs to go about it. Let me educate myself. Let me be willing to educate myself first of all. Let me get an understanding about how the world really works. And after that, I need to start interacting with an international community, coming onto the podcast, chatting, in South Africa, Dawn in Canada, where Robin is, because she's, different places all the time. I chat to you, Dawn. And also, chat to all these people. And then you start communicating with these people. Now you start being strategic. and I've just done this with Dawn, you know who Diana is. I've just done this with her, with what's happening in the US, and it's actually working. The message that she wanted me to help her to spread, it's picking up momentum now, especially with the shooting that happened with Renee. So it's picking up momentum because we were strategic about it. I mean, she or whoever could have gone out there, yeah, Trump sucks, whatever, but she never. She was strategic about it. She went to events that mattered, people who were thinking the same. And then she started to share the message with them. And now they taking the message and now they spreading it. Now they're all coming together. I feel it's a smarter way of achieving that goal. Instead of going out there day and night and screaming and shouting and there's fires and, buildings are getting torn down, it's not effective because what's stopping the Iranian government from just killing all of them? Like, the army comes out and just starts shooting. I mean, who's winning and who's losing? These are just
I think a lot of what you're talking about is going on behind the scenes. There's, from what I understand, particularly in Iran, that there's a very sophisticated interconnectedness between young people using social media and that.
Yeah.
And
didn't they ban the internet?
what's that?
Didn't they shut down the internet in Iran?
They certainly shut outside. It's almost impossible to communicate with people. But within Iran, there's still a lot of. But my point is that I think there are, to me, the ultimate, it doesn't do any good to just fulminate. You have to take action, whatever the action is. For some people, and I think being in the streets is a visual image that we are here and we're not going to be cowed. We're not going to be intimidated. We're here. At the same time, that's not enough either. Then you have to spread the word otherwise and provide alternatives. And I think a combination of what we're doing, although on a limited scale, I think that we start to get that word out as best we can. And I know that's what you're all about, but I also have nothing but absolute admiration for those people. And I'm not bragging, but I did that in 1968 in the Democratic Convention during the Vietnam War. And I really put myself on the line and ended up in jail and beaten up. And because if you feel strongly enough, if you believe that this is, like I think about the woman you were mentioning who was singing, knowing that she was going to die. I think about the Vietnamese monks who self-immolated, who burned themselves. I mean, that they, it's an expression of the depth of your commitment, that your commitment to humanity, your commitment to stopping something that's intolerable. And I think for many, that's what was the terrifying about the situation in Gaza. This was happening in real time. This was happening while we were here, and we felt nothing we could do about it. That's the worst thing, is to feel helpless, impotent, that there's nothing we can do, so why try? Zahra could have very easily given up, but she didn't, and she kept going. I mean, if we find our way to not give up, like I said this before, but I've got a sign that my daughter made for me that says, "The world is too full of possibilities to give up hope." I saw Zahra say, "Hope." That's what we're all about, is hope for the future. And I mean, but it's not just enough to hope. You have to work to make that hope a reality. And I think your point is, if I take it, there's many ways, to act in an effective way.
Exactly. And different societies have their different strategies, because in Iran, like, most of the people are against the government, so they can go out of their home and be against their government. But in Afghanistan, not all of them, only there are some of the girls. Even not all the girls want this, because I also know other girls who ended up being housewives because that was how they wanted. They were illustrated at the beginning. They did not study at all, so they were fine the way they are. And different communities, different societies and governments, they need to have different strategies to work out.
Excellent. Maybe that's a good way to learn.
Yeah. Zahra, throughout the panel, you mentioned, one of your long-term goals is to join the United Nations. Now, if you look at the situation in Afghanistan and the United Nations playing no role in it, how does it make you feel? Do you feel that's the right fit for you?
Well, I am in a situation where I keep changing my goals based on the situation I am in. The older time, I wanted to be more into politics, but now I am in a completely different path, which is psychology and art and designing. And I am working with a very good teacher, Miss Clay, in the UK right now. We're working on a portfolio for me to go to Oxford University for 2029 or 2030, or maybe not after that in the coming years for the art. And so what can I do with the art? Of course, informing people, the world, what of the situation with art, and also helping when I remember when I was in Afghanistan, I could study mathematics in college. I could study physics in college, but I did not see a lot of art schools, art academies, because the people do not believe in art because the only thing they know is to survive. And so I was thinking of having some other projects, so not only to survive but also to survive mentally. And yeah, my goals are keeping changing, but I can kind of relate UN to art and designing and psychology and all of them that I can't say right now because they keep changing.
Impressionist.
But she's not just going to accept the UN the way it is. She's going to change it and make it better. That's that. But anyway, it's idle joy to talk to somebody, with
This is a situation. No, I was just saying,
I think we're all frustrated with the UN, right? I mean, the inability of the world community to respond to these terrible situations. I think, I don't get me wrong. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we see the invasion of Venezuela and the just throws up their hands, or what's going on in Afghanistan just throws up their hand. I mean, the Russians, the Soviets had to go at it. The Americans had to go. Maybe that's created the problem as much as it has, as you said, the international intervention. But a United Nations, a global organization that has the common good at heart, maybe could have some impact. But unfortunately, it seems very hard to create that kind of a.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, but I think it is worth to mention this because I think this is the right place, right time, right now. I had these pencils from the UN when I was young, when I was a little child. I had these bags from UNICEF, and also I had these pencils, notebooks, and even biscuits. And that was how I could go to school, because in those areas mostly there is no family who can support that. And I grew up with the help of UN. My mom was working in the UN and her whole life in different parts, UNICEF and some other organizations supported by the UN. And still, 1 month or 2 months ago, she was working in there with the UN, but now there is no UN, I guess. And we can't ignore the help of UN. Maybe there are some parts of the UN that are still working, and I grew up with that, with those.
That he still remember that pencil from
I do.
something that we would just take for granted. And good for you for pointing that out, and that the UNICEF has done wonderful work all around the world. And maybe it gives enough pencils to enough people.
Everyone is frozen on my end. Okay, no, we're back. But see, politics has evolved over time. Maybe one day in the past, it was, something that you could really depend on. Way back in the day, you could depend on politics, or you could depend on, a politician. But in this day and age, it's just become this global agenda, global totalitarian rule. We um, to get a grip on this or to change something within these organizations is so difficult because I just don't feel that they sit back and, just let it be. There has to be like, an agenda. Venezuela was an agenda by the US, and there's no accountability because the US is not registered with the ICC. So there'll never be accountability, for the administration. But I just don't feel, in my opinion, that when something happens in a country, that the global community just lets it be because we can't do anything about it. I feel like, no, there's a global agenda, let the Taliban be there. And I feel the Taliban government is controlled by first world countries. It's not like they just go around and do what they want, when they want, for how long they want to do it, and there's no international consequences. There's always international consequences. And we'll never know what that agenda is, but we will see more and more of it, in the next 5 to 10 years. And World War III has already started, and that's the scary part.
Oh,
That's the scary part.
Well, let's say that there's certainly a lot of very disturbing elements that in play right now. I'm not sure I'm willing to accept World War III yet, but I mean, I think what we're talking, I think you've nailed it, and I think we have to create the means for global response to global outrages, global failures. And we've never really taken that responsibility. Even the United Nations said we're not going to interfere in internal people's business. So in Afghanistan, you can torture women, you can do anything you want. We won't interfere. That was the only way they could get the United Nations together. But now we need to go the next step, which they know, we are really one people, one globe. And what happens in Afghanistan affects me. And what happens in Venezuela affects the world. And so we have to respond. And I think that lack of responsible, meaningful, effective global responses to terrible acts, whether it's in Gaza or in Afghanistan, is what we're lacking. And until we're able to establish that, it's every man. It's just a free for all. Whoever's got the biggest guns win. And I mean, that's a pretty primitive, as you say, it's a pretty primitive way about going about global events. And I mean, as you know, I've worked in Cuba. I've been to Cuba many times. And I mean, to see what they would like to have done and what they have not been allowed to do. And you can look at so many countries that, had ideals and visions, Nicaragua, Guatemala before the Arbenz government was overthrown. It goes on and on, because you can't, we don't have a way of protecting those experiments from those people who are determined to maintain a certain order. And I don't know how we're going to develop that. I mean, look at Chile and after Allende and the installation of Pinochet. I mean, well, there was an experiment that had all kinds of wonderful promise, but it wasn't tolerated. It couldn't be tolerated. It upset the order of things. Right? So I don't know. It's an interesting challenge, but maybe Zahra will figure it out. I hope so. And
I mean, look, there's a lot of I don't knows, and I love what we do.
sorry, I lost your voice.
yeah, we've lost your voice, Kino.
Yeah.
But we can just talk. Anyway, it is that he's got if I can get his mute off.
Yeah.
Okay, and he can edit this. Kino is really good. We can't hear you, Kino. Can you unmute? He's pretty good at edit this. But again, for me to talk to people like I too get I'm obviously older, and many of my contribution. Oh, you're back! Oh, thank God.
Yeah, that was a software. It's good. Even normally at the start of each show, and I don't do it on this show, I tell them that, look, whoever's on, it can be freezing throughout the show. Just be patient, to reconnect. But I never informed you and Zahra about that. And now the only worry I have is that one of you will leave the screen, which leaves like a bad conclusion to the show. So I'm glad. Thank you for being patient.
I think this one can use the editing, I think this one can use it.
That part I will edit. So what I was just saying there was there's a lot of I don't knows, and it's okay that we don't know. And I love what we're doing here with the Creating Team Human Project. And we won't get all the answers, no matter who we speak to around the world. We are never going to get all the answers in one show. All we can do is take bits and pieces. And when we promote this show and people listen to Zahra's story, even if it's a 30-second to a 1-minute clip of Zahra's story, something triggers within them to say, hey, look at what Zahra said. Let me reflect on my life now. And that's my hope. And that's the best that I can do, as a content creator. That is the best I can do. Get in front of someone to make them think, wow, okay, look at what she went through, look at what she's doing, and look at what her long-term goals is. Why can't I?
I really like that concept because, we can talk about, it's terrible what's going on in Afghanistan. But then there's a person, a real honest human being who can, and suddenly it takes it from the impersonal to the personal. And to me, that's the way we create a more global, identity. Is that, gosh, we're not all that different at all. We're, and we all really hope for the same thing in many ways. And so someone like you takes this, your extraordinary experiences and extends those out to a wider audience. So they say, wow, I never thought about that. Well, what courage. And gee, I've kind of taken a lot of this for granted. Maybe I should look into this more. So I really appreciate your being here with us today. Wonderful.
Yeah. And Zahra, before you conclude, because we're going to conclude, with you only speaking, like as I was saying, it's converted now from a podcast between Dawn and I to now a project. And, we don't just want guests to come on, phenomenal individuals like yourself, just to share your story, but we want you to join our community, be a partner in growing this project because, I'm going to create, an online group, community group, where we can all interact with each other. But, it's all of us to say, okay, let me share this group, with these people so they can join in the conversation. And that's how we build momentum with us. We need everyone to join the Creating Team Human team. That's what I want. So, yeah, Zahra, you can conclude, and I want to put you on the spot with that conclusion. Like, if you were the leader of the free world right now, what would your message be?
Whatever that means.
Yeah, and that happens.
I believe I'm not ready to be the leader right now.
I think you are. Just go for it. Yeah.
Well, while she's thinking, I want to say one thing. I thought it was really neat when she says, I'm taking an art course with a professor in Britain. That begins to give us a sense of what we are as a global society. I'm taking a course with a woman in Britain, or I'm talking to a woman in Indonesia, or I have a friend who's in South Africa. I mean, we really do now have the mechanism to be one world, and I thought that was really neat. Oh, I'm just taking a course, woman in Britain. That's wasn't that long ago. We couldn't do that, right? Unless you went to Britain. So I don't know. What final word would you like to leave us with?
Leave the
This is
world.
how, and this is how it starts. I'm not a leader, and I might not have that ability to say anything that will transform the whole world right now, but I just want to say this, that this is what we are doing. This is what we should be doing. That Miss Robin Higgins helped me, and I am in here. She had this mindfulness moments classes, and also I was talking to her personally, and I found out how to manage all those bad feelings I do have every time I go out and see Taliban. And after that, when I'm here, I just talked to this my teacher, art teacher, who was our actual teacher in BGA, this school. And once she got to know about Afghanistan, she accepted to work with other Afghan girls voluntarily. And that's how it started. I mean, yeah. And now she is in there. She might have like these beautiful art gatherings, reunions, and she will talk to other well-educated people. And
It's that network you're talking about, Kino. It starts here and then branches out. And that's really a lovely image.
and it is very fast. Yes.
It can be very fast. I like that. I don't have a lot of time. I'd like to make it as fast as possible.
Yeah, look, Zara, I mean, I chat to a lot of people, on a weekly basis, on all three podcasts. And I can tell when someone is meant to be a leader. And you are meant to be a leader. Dawn is meant to be a leader, and the moment you start having that confidence in yourself that, yes, I am a leader, and there's no age linked to it, there's no experience linked to it, there's no education linked to it. It's either you have it or you don't. That's the reality of the world. And the moment, someone like us or Dawn and I tell you, look, you are a leader, you are good to go. It doesn't matter where you are right now in the moment with your life, but you're good to go and you are definitely an inspiration, So you got our vote on it, you got my vote on it, Just be confident about it, because we can see it in you, and we need people like you to go out in the world and take charge of a situation, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow in a year. And the thing is, I mean, I've made this mistake so many times in my life where you think you're not ready, but you actually are. And then I reached the stage where, look, okay, I'm no longer going to have that sort of thoughts, that mentality. If I want to run with something, we're just going to go in. Don't think about it with this podcast. We just went in. We didn't know what was going to happen, who was going to be our guest, but we've done pretty okay so far. Yeah, we've had roadblocks along the way, there's been challenges, but we're still here because we're perfecting as we move along, because we waited until we perfected and, had a following or had, the guests lined up for the next 6 months. I mean, look at all the chaos in the world, it would have been too late. So, just go for it. That's my message to you, Zara. Just go for it. Take charge. Start building your community.
With all due respect, I don't think she needs our advice to go for it. I think she's going for it now. I don't think we got.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. It gives me a lot of motivation and power to go on.
Yeah. You could be, who knows, maybe politics is your calling. We don't know. Sometimes our plan is here, but God's plan is here. In the future to come, you could be the next president, in the future to come of Afghanistan. You don't know that. You don't know. It's like these steps.
Okay. We believe it or not, we've been speaking for an hour and a half. So let's let's say goodbye to
Speak for a whole week,
some of it than others, but yes, that's true. Okay. Uh, let's say goodbye to Zaya. Thank you so much for your participation. Again, you've been, as Kino said, a real inspiration. And it's been lovely to talk to you. We wish you the best in your future. Anything we can do, you be sure to let us know.
Thank
Yeah,
you
we will
so much.
No, thank you. We will definitely be in communication. I mean, look at how we ended up here today. I copied you on an email, and here we are having another awesome conversation. So, but that was a sign, that was a sign for me as well that, look, we need to keep the communication going with all parties, on and off air, to make this happen, to make it, be worth something. So thanks, Zara. I will be in contact.
Thank you. Thank you, Dardan and Kino, and thank you for having me.
It's been a real
pleasure. It's a pleasure. You too. Sleep. Bye.